Estrid, her name is Estrid. Gregory shouted the words aloud to the sleeping city. He hugged himself in glee and waltzed along the cobblestone road until he reached his small room at the back of the exclusive inn where he worked as a journeyman chef. Gregory had just achieved journeyman status, and it came with an increase in salary. He was delighted, for now he could take a wife and begin his family, and Estrid was the lucky woman who would make him the happiest of men. The young chef chortled merrily and kicked his heels in a spasm of sheer delight. Maybe he was a bit of a fool to have fallen in love with a girl he had never met, but Gregory didn't care. Time would take care of that problem. Gregory had been making blood sausage for the gathering at the inn when he'd seen Estrid for the first time. He was mixing pig blood into the bowl with the other ingredients when a red flash outside the window caught his eye. Gregory looked outside and saw a woman walking down the lantern-lit cobblestone street. Her knee-length red hair swirled around her like a cloak. The woman's form was dainty and well-rounded in all the right places. Gregory could not see her face, but anyone with such gorgeous red hair must be beautiful. He couldn't take his eyes off the woman's hair. Gregory watched until the woman disappeared around a corner. Only then did he realize he'd spilled most of the pig blood on the floor. From that moment, Gregory longed to meet the red-haired woman, but night followed long night without a glimpse of her, until tonight. Gregory had been making the blood pudding for tomorrow's special luncheon when he glimpsed the red-haired woman walking down the street in the light of the gas lamps. He put the pudding in the cold room, hands shaking with nerves, and bolted outside. To his relief, the woman was just turning a corner ahead of him. Gregory followed, calling, "Lady, please wait!" But she didn't hear him. She stayed a block ahead of him, moving swiftly through the twists and turns of the old city. Gregory's heart was thundering from so much unexpected exercise, and he was clutching a stitch in his side by the time the red-haired woman stopped suddenly before a door, turned a key in the lock, and slipped inside. He hobbled up the steps and knocked. After a moment, a lovely female voice called to him through the door. "Who is it?" "It is I, Gregory, the journeyman chef from the inn," he called through the door. "Lovely lady, I have seen you passing the inn, and I wish to court you. I make a fine salary, and would be a good husband. Lady, may I meet you?" To his delight, the woman replied, "I have seen you at the inn, Gregory the chef, and I would like to meet you. But I cannot come out this evening. My parents are ill. Could you return tomorrow?" Gregory shivered in delight. "I could come tomorrow, but lovely lady, at least tell me your name." Through the door, the woman cooed, "Estrid. My name is Estrid." That night Gregory dreamed of his new love. He saw Estrid walking away from him down the road that led to the woods outside of town. Her blood-red hair floated around her like a cloak, gleaming in the starlight. He followed her, longing to see her lovely face, but she was always just a few yards ahead of him, following a winding path toward a dark cottage surrounded by tall pines. And then the morning sunlight woke him, and it was time to go to work. Gregory hummed to himself as he worked. The usually temperamental journeyman actually joked with the kitchen boys, and he didn't even scold the server when he dropped a plate of salmon on the floor. The staff was amazed by the chef's good humor, but Gregory's mind wasn't on his work. He kept seeing Estrid's blood-red hair swaying around her as she walked home in the lamplight. He would see her tonight. How would he make it through the day? The hours crawled slowly by, but at last Gregory was standing in his best suit, clutching a bouquet of blood-red roses. He raised his hand to knock, but before his knuckles brushed the wood, Estrid's voice spoke from behind the door. "Gregory, I am sorry," she said. "My parents are still ill, and I cannot go out with you tonight." Gregory blinked in surprise. How had Estrid known he was here? But his surprise was swallowed swiftly by disappointment. "I am sorry to hear they are ill," he said politely. "I have flowers for you. Will you open the door so I can give them to you in person?" But Estrid said, "I hear my mother calling to me. I'd better go to her. Would you leave the flowers by the door?" And would you come tomorrow night instead so we can meet?" Her voice was so sweet and delicate that Gregory was smitten anew. He could wait one more night to meet his love. "Of course, my lady. I will see you tomorrow night." "Good dreams, my Gregory," Estrid cooed through the door. Gregory left the blood-red roses on the doorstep and floated home. "Estrid," he whispered to the wind. "Her name is Estrid." He tumbled into bed and dreamed at once of the lovely red-haired woman, always walking away from him down the cobblestone streets. All night long he followed her through the twists and the turns of the city, and then out into the woods, down the dark path to the cottage in the pines. In his dream, he peered through a crack and saw Estrid with her back to him, stirring a pot of blood-red soup before the fire. It was the same color as her long, lovely red hair. "Turn around, Estrid," Gregory willed. "Let me see your face." But a sunbeam slanted through his window and woke him before Estrid finished stirring her soup. Around noon, Gregory tossed the last of the tomato slices into the pot and put it over the fire to slowly simmer into a deep, thick tomato soup to be served with the supper that night. The blood-red soup looked so much like the soup he'd seen in his dream of Estrid that Gregory decided it must be a sign. She was making soup, he was making soup. They were meant for each other. He sighed romantically and forgot to scold the kitchen boy for forgetting to fill the woodbox. Donning his best suit once again after the kitchen closed for the night, Gregory made his way through the twisted streets to Estrid's door. He knocked boldly, and Estrid answered at once, speaking through the door. "Gregory, my father is very poorly. You cannot come in." Gregory's heart sank into his shoes. Estrid was avoiding him. She did not want to meet her clumsy suitor. As if she had read his mind, Estrid cooed, "Of course I must meet you, Gregory. I just cannot meet you now. But at midnight I will come to the fountain in the square beside the inn. Meet me there tonight, as I have met you in your dreams these last 2 evenings." Gregory's eyes widened. "You sent me those dreams?" "Of course," cooed the lovely voice. "You are my true love. I could not be with you in the flesh, so I came to you in your dreams." A shiver ran down Gregory's spine. He was astonished at this sign of power from the delicate woman with the blood-red hair. And such a woman wanted him, the journeyman chef? It seemed like a miracle. "I will meet you by the fountain," he promised the lovely little voice behind the door, and he danced all the way back to the inn, to the amused delight of all who passed him in the street. Gregory spent the next 2 hours pacing back and forth in the square, waiting for Estrid to appear. Eventually, he tired of all the walking and sank down on a bench to wait. His eyes grew heavy as midnight approached. Gregory toppled slowly onto the seat of the bench and fell into a lovely dream. He was walking down a winding path through the woods toward the cottage. Firelight spilled through the partially open door, and he could see Estrid bent over a steaming pot of blood-red soup, her hair gleaming. As if she sensed his approach, Estrid called over her shoulder, "Come in, Gregory. I have been expecting you." All around the square, the world went silent and too still. Even the wind ceased batting the dead autumn leaves hither and thither across the cobbles. The gas lamps shivered behind their glass as a figure with flowing blood-red hair floated soundlessly down from the sky above the square and landed beside the sleeping Gregory. "Hello, love," Estrid cooed as her hair spilled across his prone form and writhed and wrapped itself around him. Each lock of hair sprouted slitted golden snake eyes and sank sharp fangs into the dreaming chef's neck to suck and suck his thick red blood. In Gregory's dream, Estrid turned away from the fire at last to face her suitor. To his horror, the transfixed journeyman beheld the twisted, fanged visage of a hag. "I am happy to meet you," Estrid cooed. Gregory screamed and tried to wake himself, but there was nothing to go back to. Every drop of blood had been drained from his sleeping body. In his last frantic moment of life, Gregory felt the dream Estrid wrap cloying arms around his soul. Then the hag opened her fanged mouth and bit down.